welcome to Uncharted Hell. I am Violetta. I will be your guide to some of the lesser known horror movies, and I am back after an extended absence. And I know there's some people out there who know me, family, friends, who think I'm flaking out. Au contraire, mon frère. I have been committing myself to studying several different softwares, getting a real microphone, even though I know it's kind of dorky. I haven't figured out a way to do it, but it works well. And the reason why is because I was really disappointed with the introduction. I stand by the content, but the video quality was really shit. And the problem was I was trying to get fancy and doing a green screen, and I didn't realize that because the quality of QuickTime wasn't that good, that it just doesn't work. And I didn't notice until it was already up on screen because I have crap vision. But then I saw how noisy it was. I still want to do a green screen. It's going to have to wait. I got the black and the swirls, and I'm going to redo the introduction. But right now, the thought of redoing anything makes me want to run straight for a window and break the glass out with my head. So it's going to have to wait. Besides, I'm already starting on part 2. And that's it. This is going to be broken up in 3 different parts. I kind of hesitated doing Starry Eyes first because there's so much in it, and I thought, it might be kind of overwhelming to start off with this movie. Why not just go with, Dog Soldiers or something like that? But this is a movie that kind of inspired me. It's a great movie because you can just surface watch it, just let the images flow and park your head and idle, let the movie do the thinking for you. And there ain't nothing wrong with that because you can and still enjoy the movie. But for me, it's a lot more fun when I find these little Easter eggs here and there and I start seeing some symbolism and metaphors. I think it's great. I think it's fun. And this is a movie that inspired me to do this. So that's the one I'm starting with. But since there is so much going on, 3 parts. And this is how I'm going to lay it out. Okay, in order to analyze Starry Eyes, I'm drawing from 3 different sources. First, and mostly, from the commentary on the DVD, Widmyer and Kölsch were very good at breaking things down and explaining things that I'm not sure you'll ever get if you don't listen to the commentary. It's excellent. Most of the time, I think DVD commentary is kind of useless. You might get 1 or 2 interesting things, but most of it's like, yeah, no shit, I already know that. Theirs is excellent. So definitely be drawn mostly from them, their interviews, reviews, so forth. Second, I'm going to be using C Jung. Yeah, really. Last time I finished off with saying they keep talking transformation. It's really not so much transformation as it is formation. I can get into that later, but I can say just from the very beginning, Sarah is an incomplete person. You can see her. She has not even a shaky sense of self, no real sense of self or ego identity of her own. And you can see it with the shifty eyes, never knowing how to connect with people, never knowing what she's supposed to say or how she's supposed to act. And she liked it, okay, most of the time, because she has repressed something. And I'm thinking about individuation. Individuation is kind of like the completeness of your personality, your psyche, your soul, because this is Jung, he could be a little spacey sometimes. It's like taking all these broken pieces and going through all these steps. Now, I could do a whole channel just explaining that, and even half-ass it then. So, I'm just going to stick to the fun part, which is shadow side, because that's what she's got hidden way down deep. That's who she is. That's what she has to form before she can transform. Individuation, another way I'm thinking kind of like self-actualization. There we go. But in the most fucked up way possible. Because just because you become the person you really are, if you're a fucking monster, well, yay for you, bad for the rest of us. But anyway, that's the way I'm going to look at it. She's working toward bringing these pieces together, pulling things she has lost a long time ago to become who she really is. And you'll hear that over and over and over again. Be yourself. Can you be yourself? Can you put your inner being on the screen? He said over and over. It's not an accident. That's where I got that. Now, the third source is from a complete lunatic, a total wingnut. I found, I was, just looking up reviews, interviews, everything related to Starry Eyes, and this came up. And I found this wingnut who thinks this movie's literal. I mean, literal. Because he's, Illuminati, blah, 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 blah. His belief is that, the Illuminati, they're the shadow behind these stars. I always thought they were talking about the celebrities themselves were evil. Nah, poor things, they're slaves. They've been conditioned by the Illuminati because that's when you lose people right there. But when he looks at like some of the auditions, for example, and he compares it to MK Ultra, I can explain that a little bit later, but it's pretty complex. Brainwashing, torture, etc., to bring out the person that they want you to be, train you, and all that. And it's really funny because he's really, really earnest about all this stuff that actually happens. So he likes the movie. But it's funny how well his ideas line up with the movie, and I can't help but feel that's not an accident. Now, I saw one thing from the commentary. They love these little Easter eggs that are in there, and they don't explain all of them. And if you don't really look, you won't find them. But when I read that, and I saw how well it lined up, it's like, you motherfuckers must have read this guy. You had to know something about this whole Illuminati thing for this to work, because it does. It's perfect. It's perfect, especially if you just, like remove your head for a second and go, and just, okay, fiction. It works, and it's a lot of fun. So that would be probably more like in the first third of the movie toward the end. But it's going to be, he's the most fun. I had the most fun with him, but Jung is going to be heavily featured in there too, and of course, Widmyer and Kölsch. So I'm about to start. I wanted to show, I'm a little worried about how to do clips. I've learned how to show movie clips and stuff, and I'm trying to be very, very cautious so I don't get in trouble. And so when I do video clips, they're very short or they have no sound. But I really wanted to show in the opening credits, and I hope you can hear it because it's very faint, and I didn't notice it myself until they pointed it out. You can hear applause. And by the time you get to the end of the movie, you understand the significance of that when it's really cool. So I'm going to open up, not saying a word, just hopefully you'll hear the applause. And then I'll introduce you to Sarah. Oh, one more thing. Spoilers. If you haven't seen the movie, please stop. Just stop right now. Go get it. You can stream it. I know they have it on Shudder and they have it on Prime. It probably rents really cheaply if you don't have those. And then come back, because this isn't just a spoiler here and there. This is spoiler. All of it. Every detail. Sometimes dialogue. So if you haven't seen it, just come back. I can wait for you. Okay, so here we're introduced to Sarah. And by first appearances, it looks like she's indulging in the female national pastime of mirror loathing, that is, self-loathing via reflection. Been there, girl. Most of us have, even the women with the perfect fuck you, you ungrateful bitch, perfect bodies like hers. Did I say perfect? But look at this. What she's doing is way out of proportion for typical body angst. Body angst is when women stand in front of the mirror and go, fuck, I hate my thighs, and they move on with their life. What she's doing is an inspection. She is going scalp to toe. And she's searching. It has a really ritualistic feeling to it, like maybe she does this every morning. And I started wondering, it's like, what the fuck you looking for, bitch? A misplaced poor? You're beautiful. And then I look at the expression and said, yeah, but it really seems like she's looking for something, not just critically, but existing. And then I realized, it's like, well, she has such a shaky sense of self. Well, that means she's not very self-aware, does it? She might have enough awareness to know something's wrong with her, that something's missing, but she doesn't have the wherewithal to say, okay, I got some bad wiring, I had a bad childhood, whatever. So she looks for it. Now, what are you going to do if you don't have any self-awareness and something's wrong? You're going to project out because you need something to blame, something tangible. And what can be more tangible than hating your ass? So she goes through this whole thing, and at the end, she ends up dissatisfied, blaming her body, but really the dissatisfaction is she doesn't know what the fuck is wrong with her. Just that something's wrong with her. But she gets to a certain point where she tosses her hair back to walk it off and dons a persona. Man, what a waste of a good persona. Look at those pants. I swear to God, I get a contact wedgie every time I see her. Obviously, Big Taters is a take on Hooters. And Sarah's stuck there serving freedom taunts to a bunch of half-witted hicks. I mean, it's no wonder she compulsively checks her phone for auditions. But this puts her in conflict with her boss, Carl. By the way, that ass-gazing boss is played by the great indie character Pat Healy. I'll talk more about him later. Right now, though, I have a question. Why is she working at this crackerteria? LA probably has about 1,000 restaurants. I don't think that's an exaggeration. Girl like that, she could make a mint. Because let me tell you a little secret. The more skin you show does not equate the more tips you earn. Take it from an ex-cocktail waitress. It just means more bullshit you get. She could have it made, work at night. I thought of 3 things. Okay, 1, like I said, she has no sense of self. Maybe she thinks this is all she can do, or all, you do, because she really doesn't have that inner core or whatever. 2, she unconsciously chose the most loathsome job possible, so she'd be able to keep her eyes on the prize. It'd be like incentive to keep working. Or 3, and this is, I think, the biggest possibility, Widmyer and Kölsch have never worked service. You can always tell. Did you know there's a subway system in LA? Well, if you didn't, don't feel bad, because LA is so spread out. It is a city of cars. I mean, almost everybody has a car. Even poor people have a car. So I think Widmyer and Kölsch were showing this for 2 reasons. First, they wanted to show that she didn't have the money for a car. And second of all, is to show her dedication, because no doubt she has to take multiple trains to go to all these auditions and classes, only to be rejected endlessly. And you know what, that's got to be a little demoralizing, but what's a hell of a lot more demoralizing is the way she deals with it. Okay, what the fuck, right? About Sarah's hair. Well, first of all, Widmyer and Kölsch said that they want her hair to be representative of her identity, her personality, things that are going on, morality. I thought it was a little bit of an eye roll, but as I watched the movie, it's like, yeah, actually, that's a pretty handy device. But it doesn't explain what's going on, really. So I started looking at reviews, and some people were saying that she suffered from trichotillomania, and yeah, I had to practice to say that, which is an impulse control disorder where people pull their hair compulsively, and they can't stop. They end up getting bald patches Sometimes it gets so severe they start pulling on their eyebrows and their eyelashes. But the difference is they can't stop. I mean, people don't go around just trying to bald themselves if they can stop it. They can't go duck in a bathroom, pull some hair, get their shit together, and go back out, which is what she does. So, again, what the fuck? Why is she doing this? And I said, well, maybe it's self-harm, like, cutting, which I think part of it is. And then I remember back when I read the Bible, and yeah, I read the Bible, Christians, that people in anguish and shame or rage, grief, they would rent their hair and rent their clothes. Rent their hair, rent their clothes. And so I thought, well, that's kind of interesting because she is under some kind of emotional distress when she does this. But then I noticed something interesting. It's not that she does it because she loses control. She pulls her hair to regain control. Saw it every time. She'd go in there, okay, calm, go back out. So, and I thought, okay, if they're going to go with the hair with the metaphor, then I'm going to take it a little bit further. It's almost like she can feel that shadow side, that darkness bubbling up within, and it's just, stayed out, or you could just say a horse is like running. Anyway, it's about control. That's how she controls herself. Later on, she even says to the producer, when he asked her why she pulled her hair, she said, it's to help me focus on the moment. And that's kind of close to it. Get your shit together. Okay, now let's leave. So, pay attention because this becomes important later. Okay, this may seem like a minor scene, but it's actually very important. Here we see Sarah checking out the ads for casting calls, auditions, whatever the fuck they call it. Again, she's very really as being a very ritualistic person, maybe a little OCD even. So this is probably a morning routine with her. So she sees an ad for the movie called The Silver Screen. And what they're asking is, can you be yourself? Can you put your inner being on the screen? Well, usually when it's a job and they say just be yourself, they mean put on the persona that the boss is going to want the most so you can fucking get hired. But in this case, they mean literally. Your inner being up on the screen. What's inside of you? That big bad shadow side that you want to keep from the world and sometimes even from yourself, like Sarah. But she's hungry, and again, she has very little self-awareness. Sounds great. And so she goes click and send. And that is the central theme of Starry Eyes. Be yourself. No. Really be yourself. Because before Sarah can even think about transforming, before she can even think about formation even, she has to unearth all those long buried instincts that she is not even yet aware of. And it's crucial that she achieve this before she can go on with the crucial transformation. But right now, Sarah has bigger problems, namely being dragged to a hipster do full of, with friends like these type of people. Here they are, in order of appearance, their persona and their shadow side. Okay, we'll start with Poe. The only good thing about Poe is his name. He's the kind of guy who gets away with shit because he's handsome. Otherwise, he'd get his ass kicked every day of his virgin life till he died and nobody cared. I'll give him this. He doesn't try to pretend that he's anything other than a little prick. If you're going to be a pig, then own it. Danny. Danny is like the group hipster ambassador, the guy who gets along with everybody, the official nice guy. Maybe. He's actually what I call a benevolent fuckboy. They'll sleep with a woman they know is really into them because it's convenient and she's fuckable, and then they'll be deliberately obtuse afterwards and talk about what great friends they are. The difference between them and a malevolent fuckboy is they'll buy you breakfast and they won't pretend they don't know you next time they see you. Also, he invents his own catchphrases, which is almost killable in and of itself. Tracy. Tracy is Sarah's roommate and the only person that Sarah can connect to, even at a very basic level. She's kind of like the group mother to this hipster brood of slackers, God, who never seem to go away. She's also a big blabbity mouth concern troll. Yeah, I know I'm using the term wrong, but the label is too accurate and internet trolls don't deserve another title. What concern troll ought to mean is somebody who pretends to give a shit about your problems, but their advice is always insincere, slightly judgy, and leaves you feeling even worse than before. Erin, she's what I would call a frenemy if I use that word, and I don't. She's a jealous, competitive, ass-beatingly catty attention whore who actually wants more of Sarah's attention. That's why she's constantly provoking her to get her attention. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm no Erin apologist. She basically spends most of the movie practically begging to be murdered, but she ends up having more compassion than all the others combined. Ashley, ugh. You know that girl in middle school who was a nobody until a popular mean girl took an interest in them, and then the nobody girl is so desperate to retain their associate popularity that they basically become the mean girl's ass-kissing Igor. They go out of their way to be unnecessarily troll bitchy to people the mean girl doesn't like to get her approval. Ashley makes me wish I had beaten that girl's ass in the 8th grade after all. To be fair, her character's barely developed because her sole purpose really is to be one spectacular victim. Okay, so maybe I'm being a little harsh. I actually was confused myself about why I dislike these people so much. I really disliked it. I mean, to the point of hostility. And granted, they aren't really people I would, not even real bohos, but pseudo bohos. The people that in 4 years are going to be selling insurance, but make them say. Look, I got nothing against slackers. Are you kidding? I'm from Gen X, bitch. We invented slackers. I've been writing a book for 30 years. It's sort of the pretentiousness of them and the shallowness, and I'm full of shit because I finally figured it out. In some ways, I relate to Sarah throughout this movie. I kind of not crazy about these people. I tend to be more of an introvert, and I finally realized what it is. On the commentary, they pointed out that Alex Esso is in every single scene, which that alone is pretty impressive. It must have been exhausting. So basically, I was seeing the movie through her eyes. Everything is from her point of view. And she thinks these people are trifling and sorry and getting in her way. So what if they did it in an omniscient point of view? That might be a totally different thing. If I could be privy to conversations away from Sarah, maybe what they're saying about her or indications of what's going on in their lives, maybe it'd be a little bit softer. But I don't. I'm seeing it through Sarah's eyes, and Sarah thinks they're assholes, and I think they're assholes. Right or wrong, but I'll try not to let that color my opinion too much. And here we meet Poe, who is telling the room that he heard Erin was a bicycle, and how sad it was that he didn't get to ride, because douchebags are gonna douche. I love the look on Sarah's face. She looks like she's at the free clinic getting tested. And there's Danny. Now watch this move. And another person who doesn't like to be touched. So it goes in for a hug, realizes halfway that it's not going to be received well, and so to save face, they reach out and grab their arm. Tracy is played by Amanda Fuller, and I may not like Tracy, but I greatly admire Amanda Fuller, and I will be talking more about her later. First time I saw this, I was like, who's that extra tall glass of cutie? I had no idea who he was. This is Gene Simmons' son, Nick Simmons, and he has a cameo role in here of a character named Ginkgo. I just thought I'd point that out because I think it's cool. Tell you what, he's a cute little guy. He must take after his mama. Notice here. One is how Sarah is constantly touching her hair. Now, if she did that the whole movie, then I'd agree she has trichotillomania. But she only does it in this one scene. Also, look what Aaron says to Sarah about some upcoming talent show called Performation or some shit. Don't be coy, you're coming. This is what I mean about Aaron. Why would you insist on an enemy going to the same social thing as you? If I don't like somebody, I wouldn't invite him to shit. Danny also encourages Sarah to come so he can talk about the script he's writing. This is important later, especially since Aaron's bragging about being the lead. Plus, I'm pretty sure that Aaron has been providing some very insightful feedback as a euphemism for we've been getting after it. But now Aaron's going to be Aaron, and Tracy knows it and tries to discreetly tell her to shut the fuck up.
I am honestly actually kind of surprised to see you here. I thought you were avoiding me. How did you think that? Because I stole your role.
Okay, Danny, do you want to go in the kitchen? Yeah.
I'm kidding.
All right, back it up for just a second. You see Tracy's face? She's trying to warn Aaron, tell her to shut up, don't say anything about the role. In other words, they've been talking about it, and I can't help but wonder if maybe Tracy domed out that role to Aaron. Okay, back to Sarah. Now here's a perfect example of what I'm talking about when she doesn't know how to respond. She doesn't know the correct thing to say, she doesn't know the correct thing to do, because it's one thing for a bitch to snake a roll out from underneath you. It's an entirely different matter for a bitch to shove it in your face. If nothing else, it deserves, I don't know, a nasty look maybe, a hearty fuck you. But no, she doesn't know what to do. She tugs at her hair and says, okay. Just as she's about to escape, here comes sycophant Barbie. This is the first time that Sarah's expression registers any annoyance. She doesn't like being touched anyway, and she sure as hell doesn't want some little twat rubbing celery in her damn hair. Remember, Sarah has very emotional associations with her hair, so that little mutt sticking her hands in and pretending to groom her must feel like a very slappable violation. Check out how Ashley turns to Aaron to fucking feed her and just sycophants her giddy little ass all over the place. Okay, I'm sorry. This scene, the way I'm describing it, makes it sound kind of gossipy, maybe a little bitchy. It's not going to be that way, but it's really important to set this up because I need to set up the dynamics between Sarah and how she responds or reacts to each one of those 5 friends. And the reason that's important is because of how those dynamics change as Sarah begins to form. And it's not just her that changes, they change in reaction to her, which is why by the end of the movie, some people are not who you thought they were. But for right now, she's a little mouse. And I mean, she doesn't know how to talk, and she doesn't know how to tell people not to give her any shit. So she's got a ways to go. Poe. He didn't deserve that name. They should call him, oh hell no, Poe. He's such a social fuckwit. I mean, look at him. He is completely oblivious to the fact that he is all up in Sarah's crawl space. Worse, he's got her back against the wall so she can't escape. Worser still, he leans in way too close and Sarah has to turn her head. Apparently, he's been eating dog shit or something that gave him dog shit breath. He doesn't seem to notice that her only contribution to the conversation is, that's cool. It doesn't matter. He's run his head so much that Sarah couldn't talk him if she wanted to. Oh, and Aaron and Ashley, they're posing for some guy, no doubt for Facebook or Instagram. This isn't pointless snark. Their attention whoriness actually relevant to an important subtheme, which is imminent. And whoopsie, Ashley hits the floor. She's a clumsy little bitch. Tell you what, you'll see that later. Everybody gets their phones out. Oh, Aaron hits up on the floor too. Ha 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 ha, falling right when the guys crowd around with cameras and phones to take pictures of little drunk girls on their ass like it's something worth seeing. Poe immediately leaves Sarah in search of the elusive nip slip, and she makes her escape. Wardrobe change. Okay, that last scene was set up to present a persistent subtheme in Starry Eyes, and that is about a very specific danger of social media, other than the other 100 dangers of social media, because why try to convert 2 billion addicts? Yeah, I said addicts. Don't feel bad. Facebook and then later other social media was deliberately designed to create addiction. It set up a positive feedback loop in the The drug is sort of like in the form of likes. You post something, someone likes it, you get a little boost of endorphin. But it doesn't last long. And after a while, you find yourself needing more likes. Maybe you'll post more. So it's, like, boost, drop, very short-term high, kind of like crack. And maybe just as addictive. And I'm not kidding, because we're hardwired for this shit. We're hardwired with this need for approval, but usually we can keep it within context. With social media, you're in this sort of artificial society, this construct, and it becomes a genuine need. Addiction is almost guaranteed. Now, I gotta admit, that's pretty ingenious, but god damn it, it galls me that the most successful drug dealer in history is this disgruntled little weenie who still doesn't play well with others. Now, Widmyer and Kölsch, they limit their focus to two parts. First of all is this myth of that social media creates narcissism. These little girls, look at me, I fell in the beer, it's all contrived, but now you're taking my picture. You'll see it later doing these little jumpy things and all that. That's not narcissism, that's neediness. It is the need for approval, the need for likes, putting stuff up constantly. The sad thing is, this addiction is not narcissism. It creates like a self-perpetuating insecurity. Why aren't people liking my picture? Should I take it down? I'm not mocking. I mean, it's a normal reaction, especially if you're younger. But a more specific problem is that it's creating an artistic chill. And that is way too deep to go in. But in the movie, it shows a few surface hints. For example, Danny's a movie maker. He always has a camera. Poe apparently is a photographer of some kind. But what are they doing? They're just fucking about, taking pictures of little girls falling in beer and their hamburgers or whatever. They're not out there using their assumed talent to take any photos. Why should they? They just put it on there. Someone likes it. They get the boost. They know they did well. They can call themselves an artist. Swear to God, I'm not mocking. I understand what's behind it. Poe put it best. Actually, they could have summed the whole thing up with that one line from Poe, when he says, yeah, Danny and I were going to show it in a gallery, but it's just so much easier to put that shit up on Instagram. Yeah, it's a lot easier. But what's happening is you're so busy looking for the likes, you're not spending time as an artist. Art is supposed to be expression of the artist, not a way to try to garner approval. And that's what it's becoming. And I can see it visibly killing creativity. It's creating like this herd-like conformity. And in a much lighter way than I'm presenting it is one of the things that Widmyer and Kölsch is trying to get across in this movie. Just when she thought she got away, Danny chases Sarah down to talk about his damn script. Remember, he gave the lead to Aaron. This becomes important later. Unfortunately for Danny, Sarah does not give shit one about his script because she just got messaged to come in for an audition. Bringing up the rear are Tracy, Aaron, and her personal Igor, who overhear her tell Danny about the audition, and all are wishing her well except Lady Buzzharsh Aaron, who even has the damn nerve to boop Sarah's nose.
Oh my god. I hope that's a working title. What?
It's really good.
And you don't go around booping people's nose. Boot my nose, you're going to lose a hand. Anyway. Now this is something I thought was kind of interesting. On the DVD commentary, they said that this is actually a very common nightmare for actors, where they're trying to read the script, audition, and the words are jumping around the page, or something's wrong with the paper, they didn't bring the script, something. I compare that to dreams. I still have dreams where I'm in college and I'm midway through the semester and forgot I had a class and it's too late to drop it. They're ridiculously traumatic, so I imagine that's sort of the case here. In fact, I don't even know why they added the blood. I think the blood was unnecessary, but I guess it made for an interesting trailer, so here. Had I ever wanted to be an actor before I saw this movie, I sure as hell wouldn't now. You know things aren't going to be easy when the girl ahead of you runs away crying. But it's Sarah's turn now, and she enters with a big confident smile and introduces herself. Okay, I gotta digress just a second, because my favorite scene in the movie is about to come up with my two favorite actors in the movie, one of whom will be saying my favorite line in the movie, and by God, they deserve to be recognized. Mark Center plays the assistant like a snottier, slightly less creepy Crispin Glover. I love this guy so much that I actually went out of my way to buy a DVD for the adaptation of Jack Ketchum's The Lost, Sight Unseen. He also co-starred with Amanda Fuller, who played Tracy in the psych horror Red, White, and Blue, which is a great movie, though I felt kind of gut-punched at the end. Still a very good movie, and Center and Fuller were great in it. Just don't watch it in the wrong mood. Back to the audition. The assistant isn't impressed with Sarah and makes it pretty damn clear right from the get-go.
What you do in this room right now will render that headshot null and void. When you exit this room, you will either have made a lasting impression or blend into the sea of thousands of forgotten girls who pass through these halls every day. Photograph won't change that.
The casting director, and I'll be getting to her in a moment, doesn't even bother to look at Sarah, and then rolls her eyes when Sarah tries to talk herself up. Again, not impressed. So Sarah auditions while the assistant reads for another character. Incidentally, if you can't tell from the photo, Alex Esso is freakishly tall, like 6 feet, which is important only in that I think it's really cool. Considering that the movie sounds like a piece of shit, something about mutating trailer trash with 9/11 mixed in, Sarah does a pretty good job. She thinks so too, especially after he gives her a long, critical gaze as if he were considering her. So she's stunned when he basically tells her, "Don't call us, we'll call you." Now Sarah is the crying girl running down the hall and barely makes it to the bathroom before she has an epic tantrum. Sure enough, the hands go for the hair, and this time she's so fucked up she has to double fist it. Remember, I said she pulls her hair to regain control, and sure enough, that settles her down. And once she thinks she's composed enough to leave the restroom, she opens the door to the spooky-ass casting director, who finally decides that maybe Sarah isn't a complete bore after all. Now, the casting director's played by Maria Olsen. I love this bitch. She's from South Africa, and she moved over to the States in 2005, and since then she has amassed 150 acting credits. And you can see she has very distinctive features. She's very striking, and so she's able to take those features and make her face look crazy, evil, and mean. So she works almost exclusively in horror, more specifically indie horror. You can see she's also worked with several cast members from Starry Eyes, and a few years ago she formed her own production company called Monsterworks 66. Now, this last picture isn't from any horror movie, but I just feel like even monsters deserve a good glamour shot once in a while. Okay, now you can imagine how mortified Sarah must be. I mean, we all have our moments of crazy or temper or anger that we hope nobody sees, and she's been busted. But the thing is, the casting director isn't appalled, she's interested. And she wants to know why Sarah does it. Sarah really doesn't know, not yet. And so she goes, "Okay, well, fine. Will you do this for us?" And Sarah goes like, "What?" Which leads to my favorite line in the whole movie.
I want to see your fit, Sarah.
Now, understandably, Sarah would never think that anybody would catch her doing her crazy, much less want to see her crazy. And she's understandably hesitant. The casting director makes it clear, well, either do it or bye. Now, in one of the interviews Widmyer and Kölsch were talking about is one of the movies that really influenced Starry Eyes the most was the 1980 movie Possession that I spoke about in the introduction with an amazing performance by Isabelle Adjani, doing the biggest Mac Daddy scary ass freak out scene in horror history. And that's what they had in mind when they asked Alex Esso to audition. And they said, just let yourself go. Just don't worry about holding back. Give us the best crazy you can give. Now, it is my humble opinion that it is literally impossible to out Isabelle Adjani's performance in Possession. It would kill you. It almost killed her. And I will show an example. Here is just a few seconds of a full 3-minute scene of the ultimate crazy. And trust me, she's just getting started. And I will talk about Possession, I don't know, a few movies down the line for a what the fuck category, because she is just fucking amazing. But if there is a close freak out second, it would be Alex Esso's upcoming crazy, which ultimately led to her getting the role. Anyway, feeling as if she has no other choice, she obliges, and so she goes through the ritual. She starts pulling her hair a little bit and hoping that she could just show what she does, but something goes wrong. And this time, she actually falls to the ground and goes truly into a full-on squirming around fit, which she fights like hell, but ultimately, she just can't hold it back. Now, judging by the shocked look on her face, it's obvious she's pretty rattled. And obviously this has never happened before. And I love that little detail almost as much as I love the look on the assistant's face. Turns out the unflappable is thoroughly flapped. But the casting director doesn't seem to be fazed by this little psycho seizure. If anything, she seems very satisfied. But Sarah isn't. Sarah's clearly confused and she's coming out all shell-shocked and hair-fucked and wondering what the hell just happened. But Sarah still lacks the awareness to recognize just what lies beneath. She has suppressed it or repressed it for whatever reason so thoroughly that even she doesn't know who or what the hell she is. So she is thoroughly confused and confides in Tracy that she thinks they were making fun of her. Tracy's suggestion? Well, come hang out with the herd of hipsters coming over. As a lifetime dyed-in-the-wool fellow introvert, I think I can speak for Sarah that Jesus, God, no! And of course she wants to be alone. Which is just fucking common sense, Jesus. But if you look carefully at Tracy's face, she is shaking her head in disgust that Sarah would prefer to be horrifyingly alone because she is one of those loathsome extroverts who make introverts' lives miserable. Now, as you can see by Tracy's disgusted expression as she walks off, introverts and extroverts should never room together. It's all down to how do you recharge. If you've had a date like this, do you hang out with a bunch of hipsters, or do you go off by yourself to recover? That's really the only difference. But Tracy is representative of some of the more obnoxious extroverts I've known, in which they see us all as like this, right? We're just going introvert power. That's not so at all. So I will say, as an official introvert representative, it's not that I hate people.
But I seem to feel better when they're not around.
Okay, real quick, I wanted to point something out. This is Sarah's shrine of movie stars that she has on the wall, I guess, to look to for inspiration. Now, two things I'd like to point out. One of them is there's not a single modern actor on there. The second is they're all movie stars. There's a big distinction there, and that'll come out toward the end. Ugh, singing a birthday song to a couple of horny diners. That looks painful. But look, remember when Carl wondered where in the hell she kept her phone? Mystery solved. I love how she literally runs from Carl to answer the call. Don't blame him for being pissed, but don't blame her for running either. And lo and behold, she gets a call back with the somewhat ominous caveat of this time will be different, which Sarah barely even registers. She's so giddy. Now she's about to get a good talking to from Carl. Carl is played by the great Pat Healy, probably best known for The Innkeepers, who has become a ubiquitous indie character actor of late, though he does star in Cheap Thrills, which is a gritty, genre-busting neo-noir psycho-horror pitch black comedy thriller, which also features Amanda Fuller in a small role as his wife. As you can see, the indie thriller/horror community is fairly incestuous because he has also been in 2 movies with Fabian Therese, as well as being with the rest of the folks in Tales of Halloween. Widmyer and Kölsch praised Healy for being able to take what was originally supposed to be a fairly simplistic role of a lechy clod and made him more complex, human, even giving him a small dose of dignity, even with that storeroom office. Because Carl isn't a bad guy. He's got a business to run and one of his servers is fucking up. Technically, he's in the right. But here's where he makes the corny family reference, and Sarah's reply is striking. I really don't have a family, Carl. And this can open up all kinds of possibilities. And it could explain why she simply can't connect to people because, okay, if she didn't have a family, then that means 2 things. Either she grew up in an orphanage, which just almost doesn't exist anymore, or she grew up in the system. So a child put in foster care is a result of one of 2 things, either abandonment or abuse, or some kind of trauma. And abandonment in and of itself is pretty traumatic. So say that happened when she was a young girl. She could develop some kind of non-reactive attachment disorder and not being able to relate to people. And after that, there's a lot of good people out there who are social workers, but there's some bad ones too. Some bad things might have happened to her, and she has to take that darkness and stick it way, 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 way down deep. But that's what they want for the movie. That's what they want from her. And that's what they're trying to elicit from her. So, Carl's given a fairly obvious lecture on priorities, and it backfires because Big Taters is definitely not Sarah's first priority, so she quits on the spot. He tries to reel her back, but as usual, he overshoots his mark by telling her, 1,000,000 girls would love to have this job, causing Sarah to have her Sparta moment and say, I'm not 1,000,000 girls. And leaves poor Carl all slack-mouthed, thinking to himself, what the fuck just happened? Sure enough, the second audition is different. Sarah comes into this real dark room and is suddenly blinded by a spotlight. And almost immediately, the assistant asks her to disrobe. And she answers, excuse me? So he revises it to, will you mind disrobing, please? Which I thought was funny as hell. Obviously, Sarah's taken aback and says, I didn't think this role called for nudity. And the casting director goes, it doesn't. And then tells her, we need to see you bare. And yeah, you can read the line, so what? The only reason you got a call back was because of your fit. So naturally, Sarah kind of hesitates. And once again, the casting director kind of big dicks her on the fact that Estrellas is an important studio and she is a mere mortal, meaning strip or blow. So Sarah strips, though she's clearly miserable. Then the spotlight becomes a strobe, which further disorients her, and the casting director tells her basically that if she can't relax and let go, how could she possibly transform? By the way, it just occurred to me that Sarah never once asked him to clarify what transform means. Anyway, now things get interesting. I've done everybody the favor that I wish had been done for me and chose to show a clip of one of the first images that comes from beneath the strobe because it's almost impossible to discern in the video. And this is a huge Easter egg. This guy is a sentinel, and you'll see him again later. But then something happens, and not only does Sarah relax, she starts straight up grokking the whole scene. The strobe, the nudity, and all the other weirdo shit that pops out. She shifts from shame to an almost ecstatic state. All the while, the strobe reveals quick images of Sarah appearing to transform into a demon or a ghoulie of sorts. But she likes it. A lot. A whole lot. A whole scary-ass lot. though it's not really clear whether or not she's aware of her demonoid face or if she just enjoys feeling all demonoid. Again, for the final image, I put up a still so you don't miss what is clearly a Sarah demon face. And look, she is absolutely radiant. She even grew some mascara, her lips glossed themselves, and for the very first time, she looks absolutely comfortable in her own skin. The casting director, too, is beaming. That's what we were looking for, Sarah. Then Sarah notices her pendant, which is a modified pentagram. Now, contrast the difference with the fucked hair way she left the first audition and this radiant, giddy way she leaves now. And you know what? I'm sorry, but I just can't let that pentagram thing go. A pentagram? Seriously? You know, to get the name Astraeus, Widmyer and Kölsch went to so much trouble to research and find this second string loser slacker cuck god who was described literally as, yeah, he didn't do too much except breed better gods, and they might not have been his because his goddess wife cheated on him all the time. They went to all the trouble to find that guy, and yet when it comes down to the symbol for Astraeus, they use some lame pentagram with a fucking stick in it. Come on. You know, back in my pagan days when I wore one of those loud and proud, I used to know a lawyer who would have to defend people who would lose their job or get kicked out of school simply from wearing a pentagram. You know why? Because of images from Hollywood. It doesn't matter if you tell them that it's a symbol of peace, that the Wiccans are so goddamn concerned about karma that they can barely move, and which is why I couldn't hang out with them. They were too nice for me. But they were. And for them to take that goddamn abuse because Hollywood is too fucking lazy to come up with something else, I mean, at least turn it upside down. It's still bullshit, but it's less bullshit than that. But what really gets me is they had the perfect symbol right there in the logo. You see that right there in the logo? That is not the top half of a pentagram. That is what they call a unicursal pentagram. It's the kind that Aleister Crowley got all hot and bothered about because you can draw it without lifting your pen. I'm not sure why this is important, and I don't want to insult Thelema by pretending I do. Still, I don't think Crowley would have given a shit if they cribbed his glyph, so why not just make it a hexagram pendant with a stick in it, especially when they're already using it in their damn logo. Okay, rant over, because I need to talk about what the fuck just happened. And here's where Wingnut comes in. So first, let me explain it from his point of view, and then I'll tell you what I think, because it's close. Now, his gig is he's all about the Illuminati and how they enslave celebrities using MK Ultra conditioning, which is probably the most polite way to describe fucking head torture. Certainly, MK Ultra was a real thing, that being a CIA human experimentation, top secret program that went on for decades. The best way I can describe it is like if Dr. Mengele experimented on people's heads instead of their bodies, using massive doses of powerful hallucinogens, hundreds of rounds of electric shock therapy, sleep deprivation, physical, mental, and even sexual abuse, and more. Ostensibly to produce some sort of super spy who wouldn't give up information no matter how bad the torture or who the fuck knows. It sounds too horrible and outrageous to be true, but it's documented, not wingnut. Clinton actually issued a formal apology to its many, many victims, some of whom were fucked up for life. I realize that most of you probably already know this, but if you don't, the wiki on MK Ultra is actually pretty accurate. I wouldn't advise going on YouTube to find info, otherwise you will wind up watching videos that make my wingnut source look positively lucid. Okay, sorry for the digression, but it's important to understand that these folks believe that the Illuminati uses MK Ultra conditioning techniques, or as they call it, Project Monarch, to brainwash fledgling celebrities into becoming slaves, or as he puts it, traumatized sock puppets. That's why they're always accusing people like Beyonce and Lady Gaga of being the Illuminati, I guess because they're so successful, or whatever. Now, according to Wingy, the second audition was a lunatic textbook case of one of the conditioning techniques the Illuminati uses, except in this case, he threw in some demon possession as well. The goal being, he said, to turn Sarah towards the darkness, evil, whatever. Almost. I'll agree with some things, they're definitely using the strobes as some sort of post-hypnotic device, because throughout the movie, whenever they want to call her, manipulate her, control her, whatever, you'll see that every time, and she responds always. But the thing is, they don't have to brainwash her. You know, according to Wingy, he says, you know, what they do is they go out and they pick some rando starlet and they brainwash her and shape her, and, you know, they're evil and turn her into a traumatized sock puppet, which cracks me up every time I hear it. But that's not what they're doing with Sarah. They don't have to put anything on her. They don't have to manufacture it. They don't have to brainwash her. And all they have to do is nurture it. Coax it forward a little bit. Give her permission to access that darkness. They want her to recognize those little inner demonoids and let them break on through to the other side so they can exploit it for their own ends. Now, at the end, the reason that she's so radiant is because she's had this darkness in her, I guess, her whole life. And she's been afraid of it, and she's held it under control so deeply she might not have even been aware of it, or even slightly aware of it. And now someone has given her permission to let go. They want her to. They're giving her permission, and they're treating it like it's a good thing. So hell yeah. I mean, can you imagine not being yourself for, I guess she's 23 years, and then suddenly, you can just totally relax. Okay, I know that's a lot, but it's important to understand that these aren't auditions. They've made it clear they care dick all about whether she has talent or not. These are stages of initiation. And one thing that Wingy pointed out was the series of colors she wears when it's these meetings. She wears white, which is the color of purity, to the audition. When she goes to meet the producer, she wears red, represents sexuality. When she agrees to be their vessel, she wears black, which is pretty damn self-explanatory. Evil, the void, hell, whatever. And the reason he brought it up, and this is true, in some occult traditions, they use colors to represent different stages of initiation. I don't remember if they use those exact colors or not, because there's so many different groups anyway that it could be many things. But it sounds right, because I know in occult traditions those colors represent those things. But more importantly, and here Jung gets to come back in, it has been used for the different stages of what they call psychological or spiritual alchemy. And that's what some of Jung's alkalites have used. They used that concept of alchemy, you know, the whole spin into gold. The process that they used as the steps needed to achieve individuation. And they're the same colors. However, they are in different order now. It's like, I'm going to glance over here in my notes. Its first stage is negredo, black, albedo, white, and rebedo, redness. But we ain't got time for that. Onward. Now back to the social media sub-thing. Widmyer and Kölsch explained that they wanted to show Danny and Poe taking pics of Aaron and Ashley doing a cute little jumpy thing, because it's the kind of thing you see 1,000 times on Facebook, Instagram, exactly the fucking same thing again and again and again and again, because apparently originality is fucking dead. This leads to Poe saying, if I have to take one more goddamn picture of you two idiots jumping, I swear to God, I'm going to kill myself. And as MB is wont to say, even a broken clock is right twice a day. Which is where Sarah comes in. It's interesting to think of the juxtaposition between Aaron and Ashley being jumpy girls to garner public attention, when the attention Sarah has just received was sensual, focused, and self-directed. Immediately, Aaron asked about the callback, which she found out from Tracy. Naturally. She actually seemed sincere at first, and then she goes obvious and twatty again. Sarah coolly name-drops Astrea's pictures, which impresses Danny, which causes Aaron to become even more jealous. So, as an offering to her own personal Jesus, sycophant Barbie acts deliberately obtuse about the name Astreas. Danny asks if she'd get him a job in production, which makes Aaron threaten because that movie means a great deal to her, and so she turns and glares at Sarah. Sarah replies, well, don't have the part yet, and Aaron cheerfully agrees. Sarah responds with a death stare, and for the first time you can see some of the darkness within her. She is visibly forming. This is a great scene. Sarah meets Tracy at the door, and she says, okay, how'd the audition go? And Sarah says, oh man, it went great. As usual, Tracy tries to get her to join her little hipster friends, but before Sarah can reply, they hear this great big wail from Ashley. Apparently, one of her little jumpies went wrong, and she bust her nose bad. Without thinking, Sarah laughs. Tracy looks at her horrified, and Sarah quickly smothers her smile and seems chastened. But right after Tracy runs to help Ashley, Sarah smiles again. More and more, she's becoming her true self. Sarah has a nightmare with the strobe light going, and she violently awakens. So she steps out on the balcony to get some air, calm down. It's obviously early morning. It's not even daybreak. And suddenly she gets a phone call from the casting director. So the casting director tells Sarah that the producer wants to meet her. Then click. Sarah is overjoyed and does this gleeful little dance, and the only witness she has is a cat. And I mentioned the cat only for one reason, because Widmyer and Kölsch thought that was the funniest thing. So there's a cat cameo. Okay, really quick. What's happening here? And like I said, the strobe would be used as a post-hypnotic device. That time it was used to wake her up, because I was wondering, it's like, well, if it was such a pleasurable experience when she had the strobe going, why would this be a nightmare? And it's just to wake her up. So when the casting director calls, she would be awake and ready to take a call. Because if you notice, Sarah never once says to herself, why the fuck is she calling at 5 o'clock in the morning, and how did she know I'd be awake? She didn't care. And the thing is, it's really easy to, say, idiot, why don't you do that? But I mean, we've all experienced that kind of cognitive dissonance when we want something so bad that we will just take every red flag and twist it and hide it, and usually relationships. But that was before MB. I'm recovering. But anyway, we all do that, just not to that extent. So, wrapping up the first one finally, and I went over an hour, which I was trying not to do. I'm already working on the second one, and it's not going to take nearly as much time because I'm somewhat used to the 5 different softwares that I've learned how to use. And so instead of having to do everything trial and error over and over and over again, I think it's just going to be a run through. And so I've already made good tracks. Hopefully I can get something out before this weekend, because I'm going back to New Orleans for the weekend, but if not, then next week. So this is fun. Next time it'll be the second part, second half, and a lot of people complain about the pacing, but I disagree. I thought it was plenty interesting, still had my attention during the second part. MB thought it was a little draggy. I thought it was fine. So stuff happens, really important, significant stuff. So come back.